Hey math kids, today we're going to talk about solving a 3x3 system of linear equations. We have one on the screen, and so the first step is putting it into a matrix. 1, 3, negative 1, 15, 2, 1, 1, 1, negative 1, negative 2, 7, 0. Alright, so we have that in there. Now our first goal is to make a 0 somewhere. And so what I'm going to do is just multiply the top by negative 1, and so that's just going to change all the signs. Now to save me some writing, I just did it that way. Now I'm going to add the bottom to the top, and that means we only change the top. And so when I do that to that, it's a 0. That to that, I get negative 4. That to that, negative 1. That to that, still negative 15. We just rewrite all the other rows. Okay. Now our next goal is to use the two rows that don't have zeros in them and make a 0 directly below. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a 2 multiple. So I'm not going to actually change the bottom row, but I'm going to write what it would be if I multiplied the bottom by 2. And then I'm going to rewrite the top row, because that's unchanged. And the bottom row, even though we multiplied it, we're not really changing it. And then we're going to add to the second row. So add that, we get a 4. Whoops, I should have done negative 2. Okay, sorry. So we add those, so we get a 0. That's what we were trying to do. Add that, we get a 3. Add that, we get a 5. Add that, we get a 7. Okay. Now, once we get two zeros in the same column, we're going to use those two rows that have zeros to try to make a 0 somewhere else in one of those rows. Now, I think it's easiest if we do the multiple trick. We multiply the top by 5. Now, once again, we're not really multiplying the top by 5. We didn't use the bottom row either. Then we're going to add this to the second row, and that's going to create a 0 right here. So if I do 0 and 0, I get 0, negative 20 and that, negative 17, negative 5, positive 5, 0, negative 75, and 7 is going to be negative 68. Now, once we have a row that has two zeros in it, we can make the other number a 1 just by dividing by whatever that number is. So top row is unchanged. Bottom row unchanged. And that second row, that's divided by 17 is still 0. Negative 17 divided by negative 17 is 1. 0 stays 0. And if we do negative 68 divided by negative 17, that ends up being 4. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to look at where we just created the 1, and we want to make a 0 above it and a 0 below it. So I'll work on the one above. So if I multiply this by 4, and once again it's the multiple where I'm not actually multiplying, but 0, 4, 0, 16. And then I'm only going to modify the top row because I'm going to add that to the top row. Okay, so 0 and 0, 0, that and that is 0, that and that is negative 1, that and that is positive 1. So we will divide by negative 1, and I need more room, so let's get rid of this. While we're at it, I guess get rid of these two. Okay, so if we divide by negative 1, we're going to get 0, 0, 1, negative 1, and then the other two rows are unchanged. Okay, we're going to do something similar on this next part. We're going to use this row to make a 0 right here. and we actually just need to add that. So we can just add those. We could do the multiple trick. You'll probably have to do that in most cases. But top row is the same. Second row is the same. And then this, if we do 0 plus 1 is 1, this plus this is 0, this plus this is negative 2, and this plus this is 4. Alright, we just need to get rid of this negative 2, and so if I multiply this by 2, with a little half step, top row stays the same, second row stays the same, then we add this, add this, add this, add this, and technically we should have the 1 on the top left. We don't need to do that though, if we just remember that this is the x column, y column, z column. You can just go down till you hit a 1, and so we know x is equal to 2. Go down till you hit a 1, so we know y is equal to 4, and z is equal to negative 1. Okay, kind of a long process, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually not that bad. So let's try another one. Alright, so we have x plus 2y plus z, 2x minus y plus z, and 3x minus 4y plus z. That's 18, 8, and 3. Okay, so we want to put that in a matrix. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is make a 0 somewhere. And so, let's see, what I'm going to do is multiply, let's do top row. Multiply top row by negative 1, and let's just actually do that so we can save ourselves some writing. And then I'm going to add it to the bottom. So our top row is going to stay the same. Second row is not even involved. And then the last row is the only one that changes. This plus this is 2. This and this, negative 6. This and this, 0. And then this and this, 15. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to use the 2 rows that don't have a 0 in it to make a 0 above or below the 0 we've already created. And so what we're going to do here is just add the top to the bottom. So top row stays the same, bottom row stays the same, and then if we do this to this, we get 1, this to this, negative 3, there's our 0, and then we get 5. Okay, now we need to use the 2 rows that have a 0 in it to somehow create a 0 in one of those rows. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a multiple of negative 2, because if I add it there, I'll create a 0 right there. Negative 2 times 1. Okay. So that multiple, I'll just write it right here. So that's negative 2, positive 6. Uh-oh. It's going to give us a 0 there as well. And we don't want that. Alright, so I think this one doesn't have a solution, actually. So let's try it and see just what happens. So that's 0 and then negative 10. So the top row stays the same. And And then the second row also stays the same. And then the bottom row we're adding, so we get 0, 0, 0, and 5. So what this bottom row is saying, that we have some equation that says 0x plus 0y plus 0z is equal to 5, which is just saying 0 is equal to 5. This is false, so we can conclude that there's no solutions to this one. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, putting that in a matrix. Okay. So first step, we need to make a 0 somewhere. So I'm just going to add these rows together. It'll create a 0 right here. Top row is untouched. Bottom row is untouched. This to this is 3. This to this is 0. This to this is 0. And this to this is 7. Okay, so we kind of lucked out. We got 2 zeros right there without too much effort. And so I'm just going to divide by 3 to turn that into a 1. So we get 2, negative 1, 5. Then when I divide everything by 3, I get this and 7/3. And then the bottom row stays the same. Okay. Now, what we can do once we get a 1, 0, 0, we can create zeros above and below pretty easily. So I'm going to do a negative 2 multiple. And add that to the top. So we end up with 0, negative 1, 1, and then we have 5 plus negative 14 thirds. So I'm going to think of the 5 as 15 thirds, and if I add those together, it just becomes 1/3. Okay, the second row stays the same. Bottom row stays the same. Okay, now we need to make a 0 below this one as well. And so what we're going to do is multiply this by negative 3. Once again, it's just a multiple. And so the first 2 rows stay the same. We add that, we get a 0, add that, negative 3, positive 3, and add that, and we get 1. Okay. Now, from here, we need to try to make another 0 somewhere. So if we multiply this top one by negative 3, we're going to get 0, 3, negative 3, negative 1. And if we plug, so top row does not change. Second row doesn't change. And then this one, we add those together, get 0, add those together, get 0, add those together, get 0, and then add those together and get 0. Since we have 0x plus 0y plus 0z equals 0, or 0 equals 0, which is true, we have infinitely many solutions. So really we can plug in anything.